All right, I'm on hole number 5 of the Spring Major. This is hole number 5 of the Koh Hong Resort holes, and I've been working this shot all week long. I know there's a layup right here, and I know there's a layup right here, and this actually is a pretty good layup. It is a wood shot, but and this is a good one too. And this one gives you different options. You got multiple ways to get on, but I've been trying to do the max overpower hook. So when I started off, if you're starting your red line's up in this area somewhere. So if you're starting off with your grid right here, you're doing your max over pull, your white ring's out in this neighborhood, you're going one ring and then about a half a ring. So when I started off originally, I was way out here and I ended up in the rough and came in. So I moved it in. I made a drastic move. Here. And instead of my ball guide being like this, I put my ball guide so that my white ring was rubbing up against the rough. The transition between the rough and the fairway. So I had my white ring right along this transition. And I ended up right here. So then I made a drastic move. So my ball guide here was like this at that time. So I made a drastic move where when I was max overpowered, when I was stretching it out, my absolute ball guide was right here. And so when I released it and it came back down into this area, when I released it and it was down here, my gold ring was slightly kind of in that rough. And when I did this, on this pull, I ended up down here. So I moved it in, and what I did was when I've got it stretched out as far as it'll go, I've got my blue ring right on the transition between the rough. So all of my blue ring is on this side, and I've got my clear ring and I got my white ring on this side. And I did the max overpower, and I ended up going right through this area and getting up out of here in the clear in the front. Now you still have a bunch of work to do. And when I got down in here, my Hornet hits 1.1, 1.9, 2.1 is the way I play my Hornet. And I was in kind of like my mid-range right here, but I made a bad adjustment. I think I had a 3-3 wind, and that would have left me 1.4 left. And so it should have been about 1 3/4 of a ring. And I think I only moved it about 1 1/4 ring. 1 1/3, somewhere in that neighborhood. So my adjustment was off. I was so surprised that I made it down there that I was so happy about the shot down here. I forgot that I had to take another shot. And when I got there, I wasn't ready for it. Okay, so let's go watch the video and see how that shot went. All right, we got the Koh Hong Park Resort, hole 5, par 4. Koh Hong. I gotta remember that name. All right, let's see how my opponent does. I wasn't watching them before, so they've got a level 8 extra mile. And they waited about a third of their clock before they got started. I'm not exactly sure where they're thinking they're going to go from here. Like, what's their deal? Whenever you're doing a slice shot like that, it's always better to work the math so that you're doing a full slice, because it's hard to judge like what a partial slice is, and it's much easier to hit down at the bottom on a full slice than it is on a partial, trying to do it in the middle. So I'm trying to balance them out. Switch to my number 1 bag. I'm going to put my blue ring right on the transition between, and that's when it was fully extended. I'm going to take the wind out. This is really important, is to always take the wind out when you're doing these max overpower hook shots, so it's one variable you don't have to account for. Nice hit right there. Not a lot of room on either side. I mean, that was like the sweet spot. Can't get it much better than that. And I checked to make sure I was recording it because it's like, holy crap, I finally got it. The deal is that you still have a lot of work left to do down there, but you're in your short iron range. And if you watch my videos, I'm a big fan of trying to work a hole until you can figure out a way to get in your short iron range. Because getting into your short iron range is definitely the optimum spot. And they tried to do that partial slice again. And they hit the spot this time. All right. So let's check it out. So I want to be critical here. I had a 3-3 kind of headwind. And there was max. There's minimum. So right there's mid. So I'm right about mid club. And see how it changes there, where it goes from where it's really high to where it's real low. It's that transitional mark right there. I want to be like right in front of that transitional mark. I want to be there right at that point where it makes that change, that hop down. So I made about a 1 1/3 adjustment there, and I should have made a little bit more. The distance is right. I'm not sure. That wind was kind of going. It was headwind, but it was coming in our direction. So this is the one thing I don't like about this game is I had a 3-3 headwind, and they have a 2-2 sidewind, and unless we're out there in a storm, the wind's going to have a prevailing direction that it's blowing in, and in the few seconds or few minutes that we changed sides and they took their turn, it's very unlikely that we're going to have this happen, where that wind changes like that. The wind needs to be the same. They need to do a layout. That's one of my complaints about the game is that they need to lay the course out so we can see how the course is. Go to any golf course in America, any golf course. Go to the nearest golf course to your house next time you're out and about, and just walk into the clubhouse and ask them if you can get a scorecard. And they'll give you one. They're free. And look at how the courses are laid out. And the deal is that it would be nice if we knew what the prevailing wind was. So that way every tournament we're not always necessarily getting the wind that you want. All right. That was how to achieve the shot here. So I was on, just to recap, I was my blue ring right on the transition. I took the wind out of play. And so whatever the wind is that's blowing in the tournament, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to take the wind out of play. Unless you're getting, and the only time I don't take wind out of play on a max overpower hook shot is if I'm getting forward moving wind that's moving in the direction that I'm hitting. And so the deal is that it'll change, and the reason I leave that in there is think about how the ball flies. When the ball's flying out this way, it's going with the wind. But when it makes the curve and it starts to do this, and it's in a huge arc, so see if we can get it here. It's in this huge arc, right? And so at this point of its trajectory, it's kind of going with the wind. The wind's kind of pushing it forward. But here on this end right here, the wind is now pushing against it and moving it out further. And so you can take the wind out here, and that will affect this part of the flight. But I don't think that wind adjustment is going to affect this part of the flight. So anytime I have wind that's going with me, the only thing I'm looking for there really is distance. So I know that on like as an example, hole number 1, that I've shot it with 2.1 wind and I've shot it with 2.9 wind, and I was able to achieve the shot that I was looking for. And I keep track of that wind, and if I get to a spot where I go, wow, all of a sudden I ended up in the rough, and I look at the wind and it was 3.6, I might take a little bit of the wind out of it so that right here it's still getting to the right spot, and then the wind was doing what it was doing before, it's just pushing against it. And I can adjust that out a little bit. and I can start working that number so I know that I can't get too high. So the same thing would play in here. Is keep track of the wind. You know, keep track of which direction the wind's blowing, and always adjust for the wind unless it's going with the ball. All right, that was hole number 5 of the Spring Major. I'm just posting this one because I finally hit that shot. Thanks for watching.